So what happened? You woke up this spring, you looked outside, your lawn is all lumpy and weird, and you thought to yourself, I'm gonna roll and flatten that thing out. Stop right there. Don't do it. Don't go rent it. Don't go buy it. Don't even bother. This is not a good idea. And really, we need to figure out what the problem is before you go out there and try to smash everything to bits. Let's go take a look. Okay, so if you're not already subscribed, please go ahead and do so. Just click right down there. There are so many tips and tricks that are going to give you the best looking lawn that you've ever had right here on this channel, and I'd love to help you along with your journey as you make that lawn the envy of the neighborhood. Okay, so what's the point of rolling a lawn anyway? Well, honestly, there isn't really a very good one. Now, these things are used a lot of the time in preparation prior to sod going down, or in really making sure you're flattening out fields, or even installing golf greens and things like that that really need to have a super smooth area even prior to planting. Now, post-plant, some people will use that if, say, the sod is lumpy that gets laid down. That could be a good opportunity as you're going to kind of push the edges in towards each other. But even this doesn't always work out the best. But you won't find this recommended by turf professionals. It just doesn't really make any sense. If you're going to take this heavy roller and push it across the lawn, there's really only one time that you can do that to make any sort of impact, and that's when the lawn is soaking wet. This is the worst time that you could possibly do that, and yet the only time when you're really going to get any sort of movement in the soil. The problem is you're compacting pore space, and that is going to lead to greater turf decline later in the season. Well, what's the alternative? You can't really do this when it's dry. That doesn't really make any sense because everything is already hardened out and you're not going to make any impact there either. So it's most important to identify, let's call it, the root of the problem. Now, there's a number of things that can actually make lawns move and shift or cause lumps and be damaged, let's call it that. Just sort of unsightly, hard to mow, tripping hazard. I don't know what you're doing out there, but there are these things that can happen, and this is typically what it's going to be. If you live in an area that has a heavy freeze-thaw type winter like I do, you can get some heaving of the soil, and that can change the way that the grass looks in the springtime. It's best to look at that in a little bit of a different way. Likely, if you have large settling areas, you're probably going to want to come in and top dress, you're going to want to use soil, you're going to want to bring up the level of your turf over time. But what if it's just sort of this patchy clumping thing? There's a few things that can cause that. One is bunching type grasses. If you have infestations of, say, certain types of wild fescue, they can grow together and cause these lumps that are just sort of up and out. Now, that's sort of coming from another underlying issue, which is stress to your lawn to begin with. It could be because of drought. It could be just because of lack of water, not necessarily drought like a weather event. It could be excess heat in that location. It could be from bugs. It could be from rodents. There are a number of things that can cause that sort of lumpy and unevenness. So really, what's the best thing that you can do in this situation? Well, you'll see a ton of videos on YouTube about people leveling their lawn, and they don't necessarily get into the reason behind why they're doing it. A significant amount of the videos that are done online are by people who are real mowing their lawns, and they need it to be smooth. It doesn't necessarily have to be flat, it has to be smooth. So you can have slight undulations through the lawn as long as you have a smooth surface. And that's why you'll see a lot of people leveling with sand, because it tends to just sort of settle itself into a nice flat plane. This isn't always going to be the best thing to put down. It sort of depends on what you're trying to have as an end result. If you're doing more with just standard mowing and standard mowing heights, bringing things up with topsoil is going to be good. You can seed into that very easily, or different organic matter added into sand. There's all of these different options. It doesn't necessarily have to be just one thing. One of the downfalls of using sand, and I think this is important to note, is if you go a little too heavy or you get a little deep in areas, it will take a long time for grass to either come back through that or to germinate in it because of the heat from the sun when it bakes into that sand. It's much easier to do a topsoil type dressing to even things out, put seed down, make sure it's watered, make sure it's covered, and you'll have grass standing there in no time. So why did the lawn roller even come out? Well, like I said earlier, it was more for like flattening out this preparation for sports fields, or maybe even just pushing areas out that are going to be under constant aeration, and it's a little bit different. It tended to be more for the sports field people. In order to get a really good compression, I mean, honestly, if it was drier and there wasn't a lot of water, you would need a steamroller, and let's face it, that is a terrible freaking idea.
Bad decision. What are you thinking? Make better choices.
So let's just look at it this way. Before you go out and even consider running a lawn roller across your lawn, stop. Figure out what you're dealing with out there. It's going to be better to bring up levels to sort of match, or to go out there and cut out these clumpy grasses, get rid of them, seed back in. There are so many other options, but you may have some other underlying issues that are just going to show themselves again. And if you just run out there and try to compress it all and smash it down to even, you're going to end up with a lot more problems later on. So I hope you found this video helpful. Again, make sure you're subscribed, and I will see you again real soon.